see you?
Hi, good, thanks.
Thank you again for doing that workup on Troy Road. It's been very helpful. It's been nice to have a bird's eye view for all of us to be able to look at where the push button crosswalks are on Troy Road and the other
Bill,
stuff.
I thought you were starting the meeting, so I started the recording.
Oh, okay. Well, let's
You're
start the
good to
meeting then. Okay. I would like to start the May 27, 2022 meeting of the Town of Niskayuna Complete Streets Committee. We're meeting by hybrid today, and I'll quickly run down. My name's William Chapman. I'm chair of the Complete Streets Committee, and we're joined by member Tess Healy. Hello, Tess. Paulina Manzo sent me an email saying she was going to be out of town and couldn't join the meeting today, so she's excused. Carla Duggal is here. Hello, Carla. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm here. Dart Strayer is driving home, and he'll join us in about 10 minutes. Jim Levy, I assume, will be along soon. Andrew is here.
No, Jim can't make this meeting.
Can't make the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Andrew Millspaw. Hello, Andrew. How are you? Good to have you with us today. Catherine Kuzman. Hello, Catherine. How are you? And I'm hopeful Elise Corbin may join us, but she has to bust out of school first, so maybe she'll be along in the last half an hour or so. Anyway, and then we have our town planner, Laura Robertson, at the meeting. Laura, and other members, just quickly, Jean Fody on the planning office. She is often moderating the meeting and taking minutes. Linda Schicchetti in the planning office, and Pete Rebecca, deputy highway. Okay. Looking at the minutes for April 29, I hope everyone has gotten a chance to take a look at those. In particular, we added further definition to our priorities for the town, for the school district, for the state, and for the county. And we've adopted those. And do you know, Laura, have the letters been prepared? Do I need to stop down to sign those, or has my mystery signer at town hall taken care of that for me?
No, you mean like put on letterhead with the full
Yes.
addresses? We haven't done that yet, but
Okay.
if you want to schedule a date to come in, you
Yeah.
could let us know. And
No,
then
I'm anxious. Once you've got them ready, just send me a note and I'll come down and sign. So I'm ready to get them going. Okay. Anyone else have a comment or a modification on our April 29 meeting, having reviewed the minutes? I hope everyone is happy with those. I did notice just one little thing on line 60. We're talking about Balltown Road and Van Antwerp. It's got, it will be done, was construction is close. I think it will be done when construction is close to completion. So I just had when instead of was on line 60. But anyway, I'm glad that we have our priorities there and articulated and ready to go. Next on old business. Oh, wait. I'd like to move that the minutes for April 29 be adopted unless someone else has a modification or a correction. Anyone else on the committee with a correction to our April 29 minutes? Okay. Seeing none, I'd like to move that we adopt the April 29 minutes of the Complete Streets Committee. I'm looking for a second. Carla Duggal has seconded the minutes, and I'd ask for a vote on accepting the minutes for our April 29 meeting. Just raise your hand, please. Okay, we're unanimous on that. Okay, moving on to old business. I did want to mention that Ashok R. who is the chair of the Natural Resources Inventory for the town of Niskayuna. He's a member of the Conservation Advisory Council. And we met on May 14 to do a tour of the town. We had about 6 or 8 people. And we were joined by Dart Strayer, by Carla Duggal, myself, and Ashok. And we visited the property, and also Jim Nordgren, Nordgren, who have retained as a consultant to help us prepare a natural resources inventory. And we went to property next to the town pool on Aqueduct Road, and we took a walk around there and identified a number of plant species there. I think we probably, in my own notes, I probably have 100 items listed. We went to 5 places, but Jim and Mr. Young, who was the botanist for the state of New York, he also picked out a lot. So he and Tom Nordgren were picking them out. But we went to property next to the town pool and took a walk around there. It's property owned by the town. Thinking about a hike or a bike path through that. We went along the bike path off of East Street. And as we came from Aqueduct Road, we took the hill up at Williams and East Street, got on the bike path and walked down and looked at a lot of plant species and other things on East Street on the bike path headed east towards Blatnick Park. Then third, we went to the pool at Blatnick Park, took a look around. We'd already been before at the Cap landfill and past the dog park and up on the Cap landfill to look at some plant species up there. Then we went to Arcona Court, which is close to Balltown Road and Providence Avenue, Arcona Court. It's kind of, there's a church there, and there's about 5 acres of land there that Ashok and other people say we have these pockets of wooded areas in the town, and we'd like to hold on to those, I guess. And so identifying plants were there. Then we went over to Stanford Avenue, which is in the southern part of the town in Fillmore, Stanford, and it's been added, I think, to our town parkland, but it's very wet, trees, but also very wet. And so we were there. And so I think we probably went from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., got a lot of different plant species, and it was a good visit. And Ashok may be out as part of this meeting today, but he's part of our group as well, too. And so I think progress is to do the natural resources inventory, to identify areas in town that we would like to see preserved and protected. And it's a first step on that, and people felt like it was a good day. Okay, anything else under old business or new business? We have some items, discussion items following, and I think we'll get to them. So unless, Laura, you have anything that falls under old or new business, we'll move right to our discussion items. And the first of those is Lexington Parkway Demonstration Project. And each year we've tried to do a demonstration project that promotes pedestrian and bike safety, has some educational aspects to it, and we've tried to do something that people can get their bikes out. They can meet on a day where we have some handouts on pedestrian safety and complete streets. I mean, we did that at Arbor Day a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. Carla and I were both there for that event. We had a table, and we also like to have some activity as part of our demonstration project, so people can bring their bikes and their kids and come down and do some things. So I guess I'd like to start by looking at the demonstration project bike lane concept, and we asked Jim Levy if he would do a mock-up. We're thinking about Lexington Parkway, which is a town road. You can see Laura here has here a 12-foot vehicular wide travel lane and a 6-foot bike lane. And so our thought was to As a matter of fact, I need to get a clarification if we were going to go from Clifton Park Road just to Region, or if we were going to go all the way to Dean on this project. I mean, we've discussed both of those, so I'll have to rely on the good memory of folks here. It looks like this only goes Clifton Park to Regent Street, and it could be that Jim Levy was, well, paint's expensive, and but
Yeah,
if
it's
this
not
is tape,
by Dean. I think we said Regent because 2 blocks is a lot for us to tape.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. So I guess some of the things still sort of outstanding that we have this diagram. We're going to go to Regent. Laura had mentioned at our last meeting that the highway thought the travel lane was too small. And so I'm wondering, have we gone from 11 feet to 12 feet to address that concern?
So I think we actually went from 10 feet to 12 feet. So,
Okay.
if you guys are okay with, so before, I could maybe find the old one if I could, but before there was a buffer, like a marked striped buffer between the bike lane and the vehicular lane, but this is just a solid line, which allows the larger vehicular travel lane.
So you're asking us, should the bike lane have a 1 foot buffer space there between the traffic lane and the
No,
bike?
I don't think it can. So Jim was gonna look at it, but I think like there's standards. So you can do this. This is acceptable. You can just have a solid line, or you can do a 2 foot buffer.
Okay.
But this gives if you guys are okay with it, I can share it with the highway. It gives them, it addresses their concerns anyway.
Okay. And you mentioned that the police and the fire department they do not have objections. They're okay so far.
Yes, when I sent the original one, I'll see if I can find the original one, but when I sent the original one out, they were okay with it as long as we didn't put, like I said before, like, the tires and stuff.
Hello, Dart. Thank you for joining us.
They're good.
Hi.
So would Laura, would you say that we are at the point where Complete Streets committee members need to walk Lexington Parkway in that 2 block area and basically have some copies of the 3 pages of the diagram we have here and share that with the residents on Lexington and just ask their permission to do this bike project, this bike lane project?
I definitely think you could, although what we discussed, and I could see, I feel like I started it, but something stopped us from moving it forward. But is that we were going to send a letter to all the residents, like a universal letter to all of them. And then like we could pick some times that we would be in the neighborhood that they could plan for us to be out talking to them.
Yes. I mean, I do think face to face, based on what we learned on Regent Street, would be good to answer questions. And again, how long they're going to be up and what we're trying to learn and those sorts of things. We could articulate that to the residents. And if there's some firm no's, then, we can talk to those folks or whatever is the best step, I guess. There probably will be a couple, as I've learned in this county. You do anything, there are always a couple of folks that are not sure about it. So we would need to, I think, probably have to share with the town board that, we spoke to everybody or got some indication from everybody, and this is kind of how they feel about it. And we'd have that in place. And I'm happy
How
to.
long would the demonstration go on for?
Well, that's a good question. Would we go 60 days or something like that? Or what do you think?
2 weeks?
Yeah, that's kind of a Jim question, but I thought you said that the tape that we would use doesn't last for like a ridiculous amount of time, like 2 weeks.
Okay. Well, 2 weeks. If people think 2 weeks is fine, we could do 2 weeks. And I guess I'd like to, maybe conclude the event. We've had others where we try to have a either a morning or an afternoon event and set up a table and maybe have some bike enthusiasts out there to ride the bike path, maybe to do some bike safety, maybe block the 2-block road off, and so kids could ride it. And we would hand out some handouts on complete streets. We would do some bike safety and pedestrian movement things. Carl and I did have a little walking and biking. I think it's a CDTC publication on hike and bike safety. And we could ride the 2 blocks and do some bike safety things. And if they're offer residents the opportunity to convey their opinions about pedestrian and bike access in the town, which we've done at all of our events.
So this is the original one that he did, and you can see it had a 10-foot vehicular travel lane, then a 2-foot, like with the double stripes,
Yeah.
and then a 6-foot bike lane. So now he's got the 6 and 12. But maybe another thing we could do is see, like, if there's concern that, you know, the 10 isn't wide enough, we could see if we could get approval to do 1 block one way and the second block the other, and then get feedback from people too. I don't know.
I
So,
think
but-
that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I have one, well, I guess 2 questions. One is, outside of this committee, do we need a formal approval from some entity to do this? Do we need to put this in a submittal to the town board or to the highway department and get an approval?
Yeah,
Um,
we do that before we do it. Yep.
Right, so I think we could get this more, I guess, formalized in that way. And then second, there's on-street parking on Lexington. So how would this have to coordinate with that? Because obviously if a car parks, it's going to take up the whole bike lane. And in terms of roadway width concerns, a car is wider than 6 feet. So obviously cars are successfully navigating the road. So, 9 feet, 10 feet is certainly wide enough for a travel lane because there's already on-street parking.
Oh, yeah, there's no question that 10 feet is okay.
Yeah,
But the highway department was concerned about it. So, like, you might be able to show them the one way and then the other way. But, I mean, I guess we may have to, like, restrict on-street parking for the 2 weeks that the demonstration project is going. You don't see a lot of on-street parking in Lexington. I mean, I drive that road fairly regularly.
There's not a
right,
lot,
but it's
but
not,
people
yeah,
would still.
yeah, but it's not prohibited.
Yeah.
So someone could be parking there during the demonstration project.
On a road that has a dedicated bike lane, is on-street parking not allowed?
Don't know. I would think potentially, right?
Well, in
Yeah,
some,
there was an article just the other day in the new, I think it was in the Times, where they talked about the problem of people parking in bike lanes. And it's hard to enforce them not to park there. So it might have been in the Post. I'm not sure.
yeah, and some roads, if they're wide enough, will have the on-street parking all the way on the curb, the bike lane on the outside of the parking lane, and then the driving lane on the outside of the bike lane. But Lexington's probably not wide enough to accommodate that.
Mhm. Laura, when should we pick a date for this?
So I know we typically do them in the fall, but we want to do them before the leaves are being collected because that seems to be problematic. So like, when
We
does
can
that
do
end up
July,
being, like,
August.
late
I
September,
think if
early
we get out
October?
and talk to the residents so that when we go to the town board, we can say that we've solicited the residents and, it's not 90% opposed and 10% that would be okay. It's really 70 or 80% think it's a good idea. And there's a couple that don't, so that we'd have that information. And we basically present the plan to the town board and show them the diagrams and hopefully they say yes. And then we'd be okay to do it. And even when it gets done, it would be a town board approved event and, up for 2 weeks or whatever.
I recommend early September. There's a lot of vacations and different things that happen in the summer, like to get to people on the committee. Because I would love to help out, but this would probably be like at the end of August, and I'm going to be gone on vacation. Not that you can't do it without me, but I think other people will probably have similar.
No, you're wrong about that, Tess. We're crippled when you're not there to help us on these events.
I can't do end of August either.
Okay.
So yeah,
Well,
like
then let's shoot
September.
for early September then, a date in September, Saturday in September.
And if we had an event, I would recommend doing it like the day we kick it off, so everything looks the nicest, and then like it builds interest in it, and then people maybe keep using it for the subsequent 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Would we, I don't know, want to walk the neighborhood again after the 2 weeks just to see what residents thought about it and whether it was okay or whether they thought it was a nuisance or whatever?
I think that's critical because you need to have some experience with it before they can really form an opinion on it. So what you're hearing from the public may be more than just a yes or a no. They may have some recommendations like we need more of a buffer between the bike lane and the travel lane. That may be, a concern that they have, especially with children. They want more of a buffer, but we'll see.
And there might even be some residents that would say, am I going to get cited by the police if I park my car
Right.
in the bike lane? So we should
Exactly.
have the answer to that, I think. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, what we did the last time as well, what we intended to do is we put out signs with a QR code where they could go and fill out the survey to catch other people besides just the residents there. And it didn't seem like that much work to do that. Like, I mean, it's a feasible thing to do again.
Yeah,
Okay.
Jim has that in his demo. He has the signs with just an updated QR code. Because I thought the signs worked very well. We got some feedback from them.
Okay. Okay, so we're early September. We're going to do a kickoff event, and we'll have to survey the neighbors and get the town board to approve this before we go forward. But we can certainly share the diagram with the town board, and I think they'll be supportive. And of course, we'll invite them to come and bring their bikes along too to do the event. And okay. Anyone else have a comment or a thought on the demonstration project before we move on? Okay, well, we'll keep it on the agenda to discuss at our June meeting with some updates on that. Just quickly, while you're here, Dart, I did ask Laura the question that you had when we did the NRI walk around, that you asked me, where is the bike path going to cross River Road at the Kelts property? And I thought it was going to stay where it was down by the end of the property. But Laura says, no, it's going to cross right by the roadway. So I thought I'd ask her just to put the map up so people could see where the crosswalk will be on River Road on the Kelts property and how it will access Black Neck Park. So it's down at the bottom of what looks like lot 1.
Yeah.
And hooks onto the bike path across the way, but it's now going to move down to be part of the roadway there. And then I assume maybe there'll be a little asphalt stub on the other side that will get you over to the hike and bike path in Blatnick Park.
Yeah, I'm happy to report, Bill, right after I showed it to you, the next week they started putting in the concrete pad for the crossing at that road.
You probably talked to
Well,
him.
Dart,
I
I
jumped the
think
gun
they've got
for-
you
for a-
wired so that if you're thinking about something should be a good idea, they get to jump right away and they jump out and put it right in. But so that's good. That's good. So for other members of the committee, this is the Kelts property, Windsor Drive east as it gets down to River Road. The town master plan had a road that would connect all the way to River, but the planning board has just gone with having the hike and bike path connect and not the road. And I mean, in some sense, this will be a good thing because people will be able to take the bike path all along Knott Street East and then Windsor Drive and get access to the hike and bike path near Blatnick Park. And, kids that use it, it'll be a good thing. And we'll have a push button crosswalk, which I think will be important, and it'll be by the roadway there and people will be able to see left and right. And if you've ever been out to Blatnick Park, you'll see the kids that come whipping along on the bike path, and they give a quick look over the shoulder and they shoot across River Road. And, back when you're 12, you've got the reflexes to do that. When you're 71 like me, you get off your bike and stop, look both ways a couple times, and then walk across. But it'll be better to have it up by the roadway, and it'll be better access to Blatnick Park. And also on the other side, where we've asked Metroplex to have a kind of a QR code so that bikers going along there will be able to see, oh, hey, I can get access to downtown Niskayuna by taking this crosswalk here and bike downtown to get a sandwich in downtown Niskayuna. So it'll be a good thing too.
Hey, Bill, can I hijack your agenda for a second?
Yes, you may.
So the CDTC does Bike to Work Day, for Schenectady, Saratoga, Rensselaer, and Albany counties, and they encourage different businesses and municipalities to participate. And we have the best participation so far in Schenectady County right now, and they just dropped our T-shirts off. So the
Wow.
supervisor, look at them. Aren't
That's
they great?
great.
So the supervisor is authorizing us all to be able to wear these T-shirts instead of our professional clothes on Wednesday.
Good. I hope CDC drops off 1,000 of them, and we'll give them away at the.
No,
The-
you
the-
have
the
to
bike
bike
path.
to work.
Oh, bike
the
to
only
work.
people
Okay,
that
yes,
get
yes,
to
yes.
wear these are the ones
Okay.
that are
Okay, good.
bicycling to work. So
Well,
we're all bicycling
what
to
we
work
could
on
say
Tuesday.
is if people come to the demonstration project on Lexington Parkway and they ride their bikes there, they could get a yellow T-shirt.
Yeah, we should do T-shirts. We've never done a T-shirt giveaway.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Maybe we
Oh,
get more
thank you.
people to come.
Actually, a long time ago, we did have T-shirts that we gave away with Safe Routes, Laura.
Oh
At
yeah,
the
yeah.
bike
We
radio,
pretty much only have none of them left, but they were here when I first came.
Yeah, they're still around. Occasionally, you do see a yellow shirt.
I mean, I have a couple of them. I gave them out. So one time when we were doing our Complete Streets Bike Festival, because they're bright yellow, I gave them out to all the volunteers so that they would stand out to people.
I think a shirt's a great idea if we can get the funds.
But yeah, so the supervisor is biking to work with us on Wednesday and's been really supportive of people in the town biking to work that day. So that's cool.
Okay. Thank you. The high school survey, I did look it over. Elise Corbin managed to persuade the school to release the survey, and she did send out a thing on the results. Had 89 responses, I believe, and I had taken a look at it and made some notes, but my copy with the notes has disappeared into the pile somewhere. And I guess I was wondering, does anyone know how many students we have in the high school? Is it 1,500? Is it 2,000? I should know the answer to that, but I don't. But we only got 89 responses, and I guess I'm wondering, is 89 responses, would we consider that representative of high school students? Or we say the N of cases is too small here to generalize to the high school population?
It's probably 1,000 students, I think.
Okay.
I can just say from having put out surveys that you don't get a great response. 89 isn't terrible. We put surveys out to 22,000 people, and we're lucky if we get 50.
Right. Yeah, 89 would be almost 10% of them.
Yeah. Well, it says, how often do you walk to or from school? And it's 10% out of the 89, and it says 66%. It looks like it's never. It's either never or 1 or 2 days. I can't tell for sure. It looks like it's never. But I guess if we had 10% of 1,000 kids, I mean, that's 100 that are walking to school. And
I thought it was 300 to 400 per class for the when my kids were going through a few years ago. So it would probably be more like 1,200 or
Oh,
or
1,200 students, right? Okay, so
and
1,200.
also the survey, it was only addressing sort of the old Niskayuna neighborhood and the neighborhood
Yeah.
adjacent to the football field. It wasn't addressing like people that might bike from our neighborhood or so if someone from our neighborhood or even, you know, farther away looked at it, they'd probably just dismiss it or whatever. But
Well, I don't know if anyone else has had a chance to study it. I was hoping maybe some more responses would come in, and I will give it a careful look between now and our next meeting and try to maybe Elise and I can work on a memo that would kind of summarize what we learned from the reports and share that with folks. I know that one of the questions that Elise had, which was, should we consider asking the state DOT for a sidewalk that would run along Balltown Road from really the sidewalk that ends at the Sunoco station? It would be basically a one block of sidewalk going from Crescent Road down to Rankin Road, or a crosswalk at Crescent. And I don't know if the state would say, gee, there's already a push button crosswalk at Balltown Road and Knott Street and a push button crosswalk at Rankin Road, that, you know, we're not very receptive to putting in a crosswalk at Crescent. And it's a real question of would students, you know, if there was a sidewalk on the west side of Balltown Road, would they still go across Crescent and basically follow the cow path through the grass up to the front door at the high school? Or would they take the sidewalk, or would they still make the mad dash across Crescent Road, which people that drive Balltown Road, especially in the winter in the morning, people have dark clothes on and people are scooting across the road. It's really dangerous, but they still do it. So I guess I thought I would, well, one, we'll work on the high school survey questions, but I was thinking if we did get a meeting with the state DOT and we have a number of topics to talk about, that we would we'd share the results of this little survey that we have of high school students here. We might even be able to sit out at Crescent Road and just do some counts. Some members of the committee are willing to maybe do a couple mornings in the morning from 7 to 8:30 or whenever, and then maybe in the afternoon, so that we get some idea of how many people are scooting across Balltown at Crescent Road, so that we have some actual counts to do that. And I don't know, does anyone here have a feeling about what the state DOT might say in regard to, well, do nothing, or another crosswalk at Crescent, or we'll look at a sidewalk on Balltown Road from Crescent Road to Rankin?
I can't predict what they're going to say. However, I do think the more information you have available to you by doing those, sitting out and doing those counts in the morning and the afternoon, I think that would certainly help if we're finding that the numbers are fairly high. So I think that's worth doing, and I would certainly volunteer to help out with that, with the counts. I don't know, do we have any counters? It may not even be necessary. You know, those things you collect, maybe in the planning department.
Oh, we've had pretty good luck with the old marking the marks.
All right. Yeah, we don't have those. I used to use those to count butterflies for the state, but I don't have them here.
Okay.
One of the challenges we might have, though, is that school's coming to a close, and I don't know when exams start, but this high school schedule gets very sporadic, and it's probably going to happen like in the next couple of weeks.
Yep. Oh, so you're saying we might not get good counts because it's exam week and not regular school week if we did it in what's left of May, I guess.
Yeah, I know when my kids were in the high school, when finals week hit, their attendance was very sporadic.
Okay. Well, this might be something we have to wait for September to get the counts then to do, but that's probably what we would do. So does anybody else have a reaction to the high school survey? I mean, I'd like to put it on our agenda for the June meeting, but just based on what I don't know if you got a chance to open what Elise sent out. And I wished I had an analysis put together, but I don't. So I guess I'll just, without burning too much more time today, say that we'll look some more at it and try to do a memo for our June meeting to see what folks had to say. Okay, anything else on the survey? Any other observation anybody wants to make before we move on? Okay. How about Clifton Park Road and Crescent Avenue upgrades? I'll just mention, following the Schenectady Gazette, that the proprietor of the Broken Inn for a while had some kind of tables at the west end of the co-op block where serving some ice cream, and he's decided to close that down, partly I think with all the construction, but also the Wild West that is the intersection of Crescent, Clifton Park Road, and is really not a safe place for an ice cream window or anybody to be out there where their back is turned to the traffic, because there's a lot of cars coming from a lot of different directions. And so I asked Laura, one, if it would be possible just to put up the M&J plan for Crescent Road, Clifton Park Road, and not there. And I think we'd seen some indication that the planning board was okay with that design and that the town was just looking for funding. And my thought was, if it's now a safety issue, that, my hope was the town might be able to reach out to the Metroplex Economic Development Authority to say, we're investing money in this block, and we now have a safety issue or a potential safety issue that a business would like to expand and do the ice cream. And I also think that Lang's Pharmacy had some discussion about they would like to have a window so that people could get their prescriptions by just coming to a window. So it would be another reason for pedestrians and people to access that. So I don't know, Laura, do you have anything that you could share with us on what the design looks like for that block?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to make 2 clarifications. The ice cream window was voluntarily closed by Mr. Nicky because there wasn't a good way to delineate cars from pedestrians, not because of concerns about the intersection safety with Clifton Park and Knott Street. So it's a different safety issue than you're talking about. What was happening is that people were queuing up in the line, and once they got their ice cream, they were kind of waiting along the building and sometimes sort of half in and half out of parking spots. And there's really no striping. So there was a concern that there's no delineation between cars and people were starting to feel comfortable in front of the building, but they had no protection from cars. So he is working through the planning board with a temporary way to reopen the window, which, I expect that the window is going to be open here like within the next couple of days. And then a more permanent solution to having seating out at some point in the future, which then incorporates the MJ design that you're referring to. So I just wanted to make that clarification. So I'm going to see if I can share, because I want to show you multiple things. Okay. So,
is it too late for us? I know we reviewed it and offered comments. I guess I'm wondering, is this the kind of plan that the Complete Streets Committee looked at before and we offered our comments? And so we've already gotten our 2 cents.
You did. And I think one of your comments was that the building needs a sidewalk.
It does.
Which, it does. And I went to Metroplex and asked them for the sidewalk, but at that time I went to the county too, and the county's unable to go beyond its property boundaries, and Metroplex is spending a lot of money for the front sidewalks. And so the thought was, we'll see how the front goes, and then potentially we could go to them, separately for the back. But like, this is a preliminary one, so may not be perfect, but I think it's pretty close to what they're designing over on this intersection. So this is what the county's doing. So it has this big bump out and it really necks this down. So this is a normal sized road to cross rather than like the world's largest bit of pavement ever in the entire universe.
But this is
Um,
just a Knott Street project here, right? This is
Yeah.
not M
This
and
is
J's
the
design.
yeah. So this is the kind of the last one that was arrived at that people liked. Although I think it was actually a comment, but I think this is pretty close. It realigns Crescent Road and then adds some parking over here and puts the same type of barrier so that people aren't backing out onto the road. But this is what that was approved temporarily. So do you see, if you can see this black line that is equivalent to the curb here? That black line is equivalent to like this curb black line right there. And so they're gonna have essentially what we had said before is that they need a bigger sidewalk. They're essentially gonna get a bigger sidewalk. And then they're gonna have barriers between the cars and pedestrians so that vehicles can't hit people. And then this is only temporary emergency. This is all just while we're figuring it out at a planning board level to do something better. Because I think the planning board wants to get to something like this. But temporarily, they can have like Jersey barriers up to protect people from cars. But this is where we're going.
Would you be willing to send this one to the Complete Streets?
Sure. Yeah, I can send you the whole
Ready?
packet. I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah, we have seen it before, I know, and
yeah.
just to
And so
refresh
I
our
mean, I
minds.
think yeah. So I mean, the discussion I think at the planning board level is yeah, we need a bigger sidewalk. Yeah, we need a place for people to have eat ice cream. I'm not sure that anybody anticipated that the ice cream window was going to be as popular as it is, but that's nice. And then if it's going to be a permanent type of thing, how can we add more parking to that area and make it better? So that's all the discussions that are to be coming. I'm going to see if I can bring the proposal that
I would
Mr.
anticipate that it's going to be very popular. I don't know, Bill, if you remember or anybody remembers when Uncle Ralph's was down off Union Street
I do remember it.
and it was packed all the time.
Packed is
So
right.
I would imagine that this is going to be packed as well because it serves the same community. We should
Yeah, sorry.
plan.
I'm going through his planning board packet. Like this is kind of where he wants to get with that area. So, like a nice outdoor seating area, but he needs full town approval for this, and we have to figure out how it impacts the parking. So it's not really sad, but the emergency measures is just going to be Jersey barriers and benches. But if this gets approved, and this would need public hearings and Complete Streets input and stuff like that, but that's where he wants to go with it.
If this gets approved, does this reduce the chances that the M&J plan will get funded and happen? Or, will people say, oh, this looks pretty good right here, we don't need the M&J plan? Or will this
So I think
promote?
that, Bill, you always ask these crystal ball questions, and I feel like you're trying to get at a point. So
Well-
maybe you could just say, I'm concerned that if, this got approved, that we would lose the M&J, because I can't tell you what would
Yeah.
happen if this
Well,
blanket got
actually,
approved.
I'm ventilating a concern for the committee members
Yeah,
to think
yes,
about.
I
So let
don't
me
have a
put it
crystal
there.
ball. I
Yeah.
can tell you the planning board is very supportive of the M&J plan. And if they're going to review something like this, they have already told him to look at all of the options and consider any of the M&J stuff in his final plan. It's
Yep.
very preliminary, and I want to be careful about what we say because there's a lot that still has to go into something like this, and it hasn't been approved.
Hey, Laura, though, or Bill, if we go back to the original plan that you showed just prior to the Broken Ends plan, there's a lot of parking spaces in there, and I think, Bill, I share your concern that once those parking spaces get in, it's going to be almost impossible to get them removed for what Laura just showed, the last picture she showed. So it may not even have to do with approval. It may just have to do with the store owners being concerned about losing the parking spaces. So the question I have, Laura, is there a goal to preserve net parking spaces in this project, or are we adding additional parking spaces, or are we losing?
The goal is
Overall.
to preserve and add. So for the emergency, like separate cars from people, you're losing 2. But the goal, if we're gonna allow outdoor seating, which I think generally speaking, not like, you know, having servers and stuff, but allowing people to sit down and eat ice cream seems to be something that the area is very amenable to. We have over 160 comments of people who are very like would love to see outdoor seating in that plaza. But the goal, I think, of the planning board is to preserve or add parking.
Is the additional parking, is that due to zoning and trying to bring it up to code, or is that something that the store owners have asked for?
I mean, I think you're never gonna, the code for, it's not, no, I think it's just that generally speaking, we've heard, you know, throughout this whole process that people are always concerned that there's not enough parking in the area.
Because what's interesting to me is I shop at the co-op all the time, and based where I live, I drive, and I have never had a problem with parking. And I go generally what I would assume just before dinner, which would be a busy time.
Yeah, I mean, so complete streets, right? Like,
Well,
you
I
may
would,
want to see less parking, right? Because you'd want to see more pedestrian and bicycle amenities. Again, he's talking about adding bike racks and making bigger sidewalks. So, I mean, there's just a lot of competing interests. I think complete streets would probably be like, why do we need all this parking? We want a downtown. We want places where people can walk. We don't need to accommodate these cars. But I think the reality of it is that there's still cars that do drive there. And so they want to make sure that they're parking somewhere that, because if you don't get the cars in in as many as you can on the park, they're going to park on the streets.
Yeah,
Which,
clearly though, I agree with you. There's a lot of competing interests here, but typically or I should say historically, we've always erred on the side of taking the car's interest first for public highways. And I think this is an indication where there needs to be a better balance here, because, you know, we have the opportunity to have an outside dining area that I think will serve a walking population, which would be a real amenity to that area. And I think we should encourage it. So I would really say that we need to sort of shift the balance, the way we look at things typically, and leave it open at first and see how it plays out. Because I'm concerned that once we get all this in with all the cars packed in there, it's going to be hard to go in the other direction.
and as someone who's a near neighbor, and so is Paulina, and other people that use this, that it's still the case that intersection is a safety hazard for bicyclists and pedestrians and even motorists, because Gail King has pointed out that people that deliver things to the co-op are still going to be coming out that alleyway that's there. There are still cars that come up Crescent Road to get onto Clifton Park Road. There's a stop sign there, but oftentimes it's a pause at the stop sign, and then there's space between the stop sign and when you get to Clifton Park Road. So there are cars coming out of Crescent Road, and there are cars coming, down Clifton Park Road to get onto Knott Street. And there are, cars coming off of Knott Street, and having the bumper in is going to do that. But there are a lot of high school kids that walk this way, and people that walk to the co-op. And now we're introducing another pedestrian component with an ice cream, where you're going to have little kids that you're attracting more pedestrians, even younger ones. And so I almost feel like the town has really got to say, which echoes Dart's point a bit, that this is the public safety is the most important thing we need to look at right here, and the pedestrians. And so it's an intersection which I almost think we need something like M&J, which might be shaped more pedestrian, but we need to add some structure here that will help the cars on Crescent come up to a T on Clifton Park Road, and the cars coming off of Knott Street and more safety for pedestrians, that the walkway on Clifton Park Road to get across along Knott Street will be narrowed so that it's clear to motorists. It's more clear to motorists and pedestrians and bikers on where you're supposed to be, and that there's some, I'd say, either the concrete buffer areas or something out on the road so that if you have people dining or having ice cream, I mean, they have that additional protection as well as some cars. And so I would hope the planning board is kind of taking the public safety aspect of this as the first thing that they need to look at to and look at this intersection. And if it's just, oh, let's do an ice cream window and hope it takes care of itself, then we're going to be in a situation where somebody's going to get hurt, and we'll all be saying, geez, how could we have allowed this Wild West intersection to just continue the way it is? So I really feel like, you know, we need to find the money to do the M&J, and M&J could get some design, could get some input from the owner of the Broken Inn so that the pedestrian component and everything fits together. But I just, I hate to see just leaving it the way it is, because I think it's a recipe for a disaster myself.
Do we, Bill, and I don't know how other people feel on the committee, but do we, or should we, sort of draft a formal memo to the planning board stating that, as you know, the Complete Street Committee basically feels that it's important that there's pedestrian safety and that we should not necessarily add parking spaces for the sake of adding parking spaces, but rather look at the whole thing holistically, you know, providing, you know, if we have an ice cream area there or a place where people can gather and sit and eat, I mean, that's going to be a community asset. I think that's going to be stronger for the community than people driving through unimpeded.
Yes.
And it'll be safer too, I think, ultimately.
Yes.
I love the Broken Inn design there. I love the outdoor space they created. If they could do a balancing act between the restructuring of the intersection and that would be great.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what you want to encourage in a street side urban setting, to provide community. I mean, this isn't quite urban, but you know, it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Well, what do other committee people think about Dart's suggestion that maybe Laura, do you have enough there to do a little memo to the planning board for Complete Streets, or do you want me to take a hand at it or take a shot at it, or I don't know, Dart, do you feel like doing a draft, or what do you think?
I'm going to warn you, I'm out of town all next week.
Okay. I'm happy to sign a document going to the planning board, and I could do a first draft and send it to the committee and see what they think.
So planning board and town board, because it's a modification in the special use permit. But I mean, I wasn't writing it down. I was trying to bring up another image, but it's just not working. But I can go back and listen to make sure that I'm getting the words right. I mean, just because I really thought that what you said was right on, Dart, but some kind of a balance between, you know, pedestrian activity, which we know is a complete streets and traffic calming, and accommodating parking, because we also know that there's a lot of fear from the other businesses that if people can't drive there, they won't be shopping there. Although actually, like, I mean, this is just an opinion from having been a planner for 14 years. I actually think without the parking spots, they would be fine, and that stuff like this is going to bring more customers to their businesses, but it's really hard to convince people of that. So if there's a way to do a nice balance with an outdoor seating and the M&J plan, it's actually just MJ. I've been listening to you too long, Bill. But if there's a way to do a nice balance, I mean, that's what the planning board's striving for. It's ultimately a town board approval, and anything that you see out there, like I said, is temporary until it goes through the process. But I definitely think it would be our role to do a memo to the planning board and to the town board to make sure that a complete streets review of the project is being taken into account. But
I support the idea too. Laura already does so much, start, I know it's always busy going out of town, but if you could just get your key ideas and email them to
Yeah.
Bill real quick, and then he could write the draft.
Okay.
So that Laura doesn't have to do as much work. I think that would be the best route.
No, I can
Thank you,
certainly
Ted.
throw something together this weekend. I was just, I have a memorial service to go to next week, so, or the latter half of next week, so let me draft some ideas together and then I can go from there. I'll send them to Bill and Laura.
And I do, part of it is I live close by and so does Paulina. And so we're walking that on a daily basis, and Elise as well too. So we see up close some of the,
I just walked by
Dangerous.
actually.
yes.
I've had a near miss on that intersection. They're near misses, but it definitely needs safety improvements. I mean, I think the county improvements are going to help because they're necking that Clifton Park intersection down. But the Crescent, the Clifton Park, not street, but the Crescent Clifton Park intersection is still going to be wide open until we do something. And so, yeah, this is the time. Like whether
Hey.
Tommy is required to do it on his own money or whether the town does some and gets some from Metroplex, like now is definitely the time to fix it.
Yes, it is. And it could be if we're clear that it's more pedestrians are coming, which we want to see more kids, that it could be the town would say, well, if it's 350,000, let's see if we can find half, and let's ask Metroplex if they can find the other half, and we'll get this done. As a matter of fact, if they made a move to get it done, it's possible they could save some money by having the contractor that's already mobilized on site do the curb piece for Crescent Road and maybe even the sidewalk on the west side of Balltown Road. So there'd be some savings of doing it now while they're mobilized on site. So I think we should do the letter and get it out.
Hey,
So,
Laura, what would be helpful is if you could send out both plans that you presented today. It would help me. It would certainly help me put down my thoughts if I had the plan in front of me.
yeah, we need to see all three. One is the current co-op block plan that
Yeah.
would show the curb embankment in front of the pharmacy, then what the developer has in mind, and what M&J would have in mind. And I mean, it could be the planning board looking at it would say, based on what the broken in fellow is recommending and what we have from M&J, we could modify this to achieve some of the objectives that you're articulating in terms of both pedestrian access and maybe saving as many parking spaces as we can and still cleaning up the traffic and everything with Crescent Road and Clifton Park Road. So
They really don't want people driving or parking on the residential roads, right?
no, you don't. So which is why if there's
Yeah.
still an opportunity to park some cars in there, but have it, I mean, even the taking up some of the space on Clifton Park Road, there's room to park cars and still have a 10-foot sidewalk or wider between the building and the parking. You've got space sitting in the middle of Clifton Park Road there that you could use to accomplish the objectives that you want to do. And necking things down just makes it safer for pedestrians to get across. And having the crosswalk in front of the pharmacy and a snugger walkway on Clifton Park Road just to get on that street will do it. So in some sense, the south end of this is getting some improvements, but the other end, which is the alleyway coming out and Crescent Road coming into Clifton, is still open. And so it's still a hazard to pedestrians. And so you need to fix really all those at the same time.
I can see if I can find it because I think generally speaking, like parking on the grass of the residences on Clifton Park and on the residential side of Crescent Ave is discouraged. But we did talk when we were doing this MJ plan that those apartment buildings that are on like the right side of Crescent Ave, they are underparked. They have these like really old garages in the back of their buildings, but you can't even like pull a normal car in, and they can't park on the streets overnight in the winter. So like they're like some of the only affordable housing in anywhere in downtown, but they really struggle to park. And so one of the things we had looked at is if we could do parallel parking or angled parking on the apartment side of Crescent Ave. One, we know the apartments need it and they can use it when you know, it's sort of like a competing or like a complementary time because they would be parking overnight when all the businesses were closed. So that was something we looked at. We didn't get a lot of comment on it. I know we do really want to protect the residential side of Crescent. Crescent's an interesting road, right? It has like pre-existing non-conforming apartments on one side and then nice residential homes on the other. But we had talked about putting some kind of maybe additional parking on the one side. But one of the things that's happened with that is that the high schoolers, the reason there's no parking on that road is because I guess the high schoolers were all parking there at some point in time. So there's a bunch of things that have to be figured out there.
Yeah, I'm sure though that there is tools that the town can use, like for example, 2-hour parking unless you have a permit type stuff.
Yeah, like
To be
that's
angle
such a good
parking and just
idea.
permitted for the residents, you know, it's,
Yeah, well, like anybody who lives in the apartment building could get a sticker that they could put in their windshield that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in my earlier days, I lived in downtown Annapolis, Maryland, and parking was horrendous there. And the residents had stickers to be able to park, and everybody else, it was 2 hours. And the town basically, I think, ran on those parking tickets because everybody got parking tickets if they parked there for more than 2 hours.
That's really funny. I think that's a great idea. I'll see if I can find that sketch too. I think we did do a sketch of it.
okay.
I remember seeing it at the CAC, Laura. That was
Yeah, right. I
while
remember
ago.
doing it because we were trying to kind of talk about the two problems. The one that it's really difficult for people for two family, because it's very difficult for like, like a husband and wife and family to only have one car because so many families now have both parents working or couples, they don't have to have children, whatever. It's really unusual for a family to only have one car. And so it becomes very problematic for those apartments.
Okay. Anybody else want to say something on Crescent Road, Clifton Park, before we move to the next item? Okay, thank you for your comments. I think they've been helpful, and we'll get this letter out to the town board and the planning board. Winnie Road easement. We had the woman who spoke at our last meeting at Privilege of the Floor, and she had some questions about the end of Winnie Road. And I think her overall point was Winnie Road, we need a pathway on that buffer so people can get to Valerie Drive, so they can get to the Flower Hill connection down to the bike path. And I don't know, are we putting you on the spot, Laura, to see if you've learned any more about that since our last meeting?
No, I did look. So I was able to find an easement, which is probably why there's a trail, because there's kind of a trail there. There is an easement, a utility easement that goes through private property, but it is very clearly labeled utility easement, so you wouldn't be able to just lay down, open it up to the public. So I was able to find the legal description and the easement, and I looked at it with the town attorney. What the next steps would be to bring that to the landowner and ask them if they'd be willing to grant an additional, like either on that easement, the rights for pedestrian access, or it is steep. So if we really wanted to build it like for accessibility, it would need to be in a different path. Like you'd have to do more of a swooping curve. So I'd say our next steps are to reach out to the landowner and see whether they would be, the easiest thing for the landowner is to just grant the additional amenities to the easement to allow for pedestrian access. Then we could improve the trail, but it's still pretty steep. The nicest thing would be if they were willing to grant a pedestrian easement and we could ease the,
Could that be a winter work project for the town highway department to do a walk path through there that would be not as steep as it appears now? Or
I can't commit the highway department to winter work.
right, no, I'm willing to make the request myself. I guess I'm just saying, if you're saying a more gentle pathway getting down would be the most preferable thing, assuming the property owner would be willing to grant us an easement, then it doesn't necessarily have to be something the board's got a contract for. If it looks like, some grading and some stonework that maybe the highway department could do, and then we would pay a asphalt contractor when they're doing roads to put an asphalt strip there. I mean, I'm more than happy to ask for that if, the owner is willing to grant us an easement on the property. So,
Yeah, so I'm gonna work on getting the owner to grant us an easement. That's the first step there.
okay. Anyone else have a comment they want to make on this? I mean, I think it's a good recommendation because it certainly does, connects, make people easier access to the Flower Hill and to the bike path without having to go back out. I mean, they arguably could ride down Winnie and then just go on the sidewalk for a little bit to Merlin and go back that way to get to the bike path, but it would be nice. As a matter of fact, some of them, if it's just going through the woods now, may already be going through the woods. I don't know, but it would be nice to have that in place. Okay. The next, we have our 2022 priority letters. And I hope folks are, well, we adopted those unanimously at our last meeting. I do have a couple other items I'd like to discuss quickly, and then I'll try to, can we do 6 minutes, Laura, if we move along, turn people loose at a 3:45? I hope that would be okay. But anyway, we talked about our meeting with the state DOT with Mark Sicaldo, our regional traffic engineer, and some of the tasks that we assigned to us at our last meeting. One was we're interested in a crosswalk on Troy Road. We talked about Hickory Road. And so some of the things we have to do, one is just to make either look for or try to get the crash data for Route 7. And we mentioned that maybe CDTC already has that data.
Yeah, Bill, just to update you, Jim was working on that. He reached out to CDTC. They asked for the request to come from me. So I just, he followed up with me and I sent the request to CDTC for that data like yesterday.
Okay. And then do we know when Route 7 is up for restriping? And do we know when the state, when or if the state's going to do the St. David's Lane and Route 7 crosswalk and the Belltown Road and Route 7 crosswalks?
No, I had mentioned to you, I know they're working on that project, but I didn't get a timeline for that yet.
Okay. Then, and this may have to wait, but I think maybe it was Tess that mentioned, gee, if the state's interested in a crosswalk is $100,000, I mean, would it be CDTC, the town supervisor, or us that might ask Bellevue if they'd be willing to put some money in to help make that crosswalk a reality, because they have patients and employees that would go across Troy Road there. I mean, maybe that's down the road, but also, if we had a meeting with Mark Sicaldo, is that the way to proper pronunciation, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I wanted to ask the committee, do we want to ask for a crosswalk at Douglas Court and Pinecrest, or did we sort of discuss at our last meeting that, you know, the bikers could go to Lichenkill or Birchwood and use the crosswalks that are there to get from one side of Troy Road to the other, and that, I mean, is that something we'd want to ask the regional DOT guy to think about while we were there at that meeting, or did we decide? Well, anyway, it's a question I had. So, Catherine, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, do we ask for all the things we want when we sit down with the regional traffic and bring our town supervisor along if she's willing to go and talk about some of these things, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, why not? You know, they may not be willing to look at that particular crosswalk, but maybe something else. So, yeah, I think we should ask for everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I
And
would
if it's a priority,
agree
you know,
with that.
why not? This is the opportunity to do it. So I would definitely do it.
Okay. So another thing that we had in mind was a school speed zone for Balltown Road. And I know that the town's drafted a letter. I think we're hopeful that the new school superintendent will sign that and that we can get either a 20 or 25 mile school zone in front of Craig Elementary at Balltown Road, but that was on our list. And then again, if we're meeting with them, we might ask the regional director to, if we have the data, to share it with Crescent Road and Balltown Road, or ask them. I mean, they might say, well, we don't want to do another crosswalk at Crescent unless Elise says, hey, that's where the kids cross and they take the cow path through the grass to get to the high school. Or, if you want, we'll put it in the budget. We'll do 1 block of sidewalk from Crescent Road to Rankin Road, but those would all be things that we'd want to talk about. Anything else on the meeting? Just quickly, and I'm going to try to do a couple more things at 2 minutes each, but
Elise raised your hand, Bill.
Elise, go
Are
ahead.
you just giving him a timer?
I just wanted to make sure you guys. I just wanted to make sure I was speaking at the right time. So I don't know if you got my email a little while ago, but you mentioned that I should contact the regional director for the DOT about Crescent Road, and I did. And he says it looks feasible from first glance. He doesn't know the area very well, but he encouraged me to write up a little email to him about the problem so he could take steps to conduct a study on it on behalf of the DOT. So I wondered if anyone had any objections, I could go ahead and do that.
I don't know, Laura, is this something that we would prefer to see the town supervisor send that letter to the regional director of state DOT? Does it have more weight if that's the pathway that's come with the endorsement of Complete Streets? Or are we going to let Elise, as a student in Niskuna High School, do the heavy lifting on this? And
I mean, to me, if she's already made the pathway and he's committed to he's mildly committed to doing it for her. I don't know that it needs to go through to get it done, but I don't know. That's just my opinion.
any other committee members have a thought?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be great if he did respond to her in a letter. But it's always going to carry more weight if the town supervisor, at least, has a letter attached to it saying, yes, we endorse this further study into this area.
Is the highway guy committing to taking a look? In other words, Elise is asking him and he's not committing to a crosswalk or a sidewalk or anything else. He's just saying, Elise, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'm going to have my staff take a look at this, and we're going to offer a suggestion. It could be this or that. And when we get that letter back, at that point, Complete Streets or the town supervisor says, gee, you've identified something that might work, and we're supportive of going forward to do that. It's better to do something to address it than to let it fester the way it is now. And I mean, is that a possibility? So
Yeah, he mentioned, he said me or the town supervisor would be fine. I agree. This town supervisor's opinion would definitely carry more weight if we can get that to happen. But he did say that all he committed to was to do a study, but he didn't say it looked infeasible from what he could see.
We could, as a matter of fact, if you and I take a look at the survey data that you've done, I mentioned early in the meeting, I'd like to revisit that at our June meeting, but if you'd like to get together and we'll try to write up what we learned from, the 90 cases or so that submitted on the survey. And we talked about getting some count data, but Dart mentioned that school is coming to an end. So we might not get good data in morning and afternoons now on the number of kids going across Balltown Road on Crescent. And we might have to wait till September to get better counts on that if we felt like those counts would be important to the state actually doing something. So it's worth thinking about whether we should, we can ask him to do the study, but tell him that, when school will be back in session in September, and we do want to get some firm counts of kids going across the road.
So if we want to do a count this school year, we have about 2 weeks. I don't know if that's not enough time, in which case we should probably wait till the fall.
Yeah.
do
Dart
the
is saying a
counts.
lot of kids are taking regents now. So are most
Not
classes?
yet,
still
no.
doing it?
That's
yet?
not
No?
that's not going to be true till the middle of June.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, well, maybe we can squeeze something in. So I may reach out to the committee members to see if maybe next Tuesday or Wednesday or something we can gather some counts. Okay. On the utility well, can I move to utility quarters quickly? Catherine, you mentioned that you'd reached out to CDTC and you had a couple thoughts. One was that towns need to work with the utility quarters, that if committees try to work with them, then National Grid's going to bill us for time that their staff puts in. And so we kind of need to do a couple things. One is I need to reach out to Mark Storty to ask him if he would put the utility quarters on the map that he's working on. So I need to send that email. And then we need to talk to some other towns about, well, who pays for them, who maintains them, who insures them, and have all that in place so that if we talk to our own town board, we'd have some data to share, because it sounds like for the utility quarter to work with it, it's almost has to be the town supervisor that's reaching out to say, we'd like to talk about a bike path underneath the utility quarters. And so
Bill, on our the Dinispina website, there's the maps for the Mohawk River State Park.
Yeah.
That show the power line trail that goes
Okay.
on the power lines from River Road to essentially the bike path.
okay.
Do we know of any of the history of that? Is that just a line on a map that we have, or was there any actual coordination to have that as part of following a utility easement?
I wish I knew the answer, Andrew, but that's a good question. That's a good question. Maybe there's some precedent already there.
I think what happened on that was that a line was drawn notionally, that might be something good. If that came from the safe routes, because I know we did sit down at one time and start drawing lines, but there is a path there now from River Road
Right.
down to
Yep.
Is it a wood chip path, or is it just one that
No, it's a
walkers
dirt-
have created?
It's a dirt path.
Yeah, dirt path.
Okay.
I'd say it's more hiking, but people bike back there. I mean, there is bikes.
Okay.
I still think it'd be helpful once we get the map from the county, for some of us to get together and to start walking some of those utility paths, just to see if it's feasible to have, a connection there to the bike path. And also to those neighborhoods. I mean, how many homes are you going to impact by having that connection? So
Yes.
that's what we're looking for first. And I don't see a need to bring the town supervisor in right now. I mean, I think as a group, we can still reach out to National Grid and see what the process is, in working with the community. So I
Right.
do have some contacts there, but I really think that it would be helpful for us to, get our act together first. and
Absolutely.
have some maybe one or two proposed connections that make sense for the town of Niskayuna.
I guess my point was, it's the town board that's got to make the decision, that we can't get too far out over our skis here, that
Right.
we can do the homework and share and the positives about, look, this is how many neighborhoods this is the value of having these asphalt pathways on here. But you, the town board, need to understand that it's more asphalt maintenance for you, and you'd have to assume some insurance liability and those kinds of things. So they would
Exactly.
know what they're getting into. So,
Yep.
okay. Finally, I would like to say, Paulina Manzo has drafted a letter to the school board, once again, asking them if they, while equipment and staff are on location, if they'd be willing to take a look at the connections we proposed for the high school, one coming off of Garden Drive and the other walk path coming in from Orchard Park Drive to get access to the high school, and to really, even if they used asphalt that's already on site, that they graded them, put the rock down, and we're willing to do some of that so that you get better bike and pedestrian access. to the high school and to Rosendale Road. And to me, it almost looks like we're still in the car world, that, you know, the planners and architects for the school are all about cars. And then it's like, geez, I mean, you want to talk about pedestrians and bicyclists? I mean, you have to get a grant for that, or you have to come back. We can't do that now. And, you know, our hope was getting recommendations to them early, was that they would just fit our recommendations into the plans they had for the work. And so, you know, they could just do it and it would be a fairly straightforward thing. But that hasn't happened. So we're kind of or it hasn't happened yet. I mean, I'm hopeful that members of the school board who maybe didn't see our September 18, 2020 memo would still be open to trying to do something. And really, as I've said to Paulina, they're the people that have got to say to the construction people, look, it isn't that much to do this. Let's see if we can fit it in, and hope that they would do that. But anyway, Paulina and other people are communicating as parents that have a student in the school district. They're not holding themselves out as representatives of Complete Streets, and are still communicating on those topics. So, well, anyway, does anybody else? I want to turn people loose here on with respect to Memorial Day weekend, and make sure that Laura can get home to scoop up her daughter. And anybody else have a thought that they want to share with Complete Streets, or something we need to focus on at our next meeting, or any further thought on what we discussed today before we close for the day? Okay. Elise, we talked about having the report of your survey at our June meeting, and I'd like to kind of summarize what's in the tables. I mean, one concern I had was, if we have 1,200 in the high school, we only have 90 kids here. It's a real question of how representative of the high school population are these 90 folks that filled out the survey. And so that's something we would need to think about before we decide. How much
Yeah,
weight.
that's the problem with sending out surveys, especially it's so up in the air whether you're going to get a good response or not. And because of that error where I had so much vandalism, there was already fewer usable responses. Like I got, 30 more, but I had to delete that survey and start a new one because people just went in and edited it. So yeah, I think that was just bad luck, but you're right. We will have to think about that.
Okay. Well, thank you all for being here today, for doing your homework. And Carla sent me a nice article on the environment, and I'm going to send that out to the full committee. I also did have some comments I sent to the school board. As a citizen, if people wanted to see those, you could let me know by an email, and I'm happy to share them with you. But if not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn for the day and see everybody adjourn. So I move we adjourn the May 27 meeting. Looking for a second. A bold. Andrew Millspaw seconds. And so all hands on adjournment. And thank you all for coming today. And we'll see you at the next meeting. And I may be reaching out to you pretty soon to help count some cars at Crescent Road and Balltown Road. And we'll be working on the demonstration project on Lexington Parkway. So thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay.
Thanks.
See you next time.